Miss Carla and I work for the St. Johns County Public Library System, and today we are making a bunny hanging for spring. So if you picked up a kit from the library, what you should have is a 6-inch wooden square, and you will have a length of white ribbon, that's 24 inches, 24 inches of spring green ribbon, and a cutout of a bunny. And then you've got a small white pom-pom. And so that's what you should have from the library. What you will need in addition is you'll need a couple of sponge brushes, a ruler, a pair of scissors, some Mod Podge, and some acrylic paint that will coordinate with the bunny that you have in your kit. If you don't have a kit from the library, you'll need some kind of spring paper to cut out a bunny rabbit, and your bunny rabbit doesn't have to look exactly like this, but it needs to be about 4.5 inches tall or 4.5 inches wide. You could go with any bunny that you wanted, and you will need the ribbon, of course. And with all of that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And also, if you don't have one of these wooden squares, I think like some heavy cardboard, which was 6 inches, around 6 inches, or whatever size you wanted, would be fine as well. So I'm going to put all of that aside, and we'll get started with the actual making. And the first thing you're going to need to do is get some of your paint. Now this is Delta Creative Sunbright Yellow, but if your bunny paper is a different color, you might want to use a different color to coordinate with your paper. So I'm going to put some paint in my little bowl there. I'm going to need some Mod Podge, so I will go ahead and pour some of that out on my plate. Don't need very much. Somewhere where it won't make a mess. Okay. And the first thing that you need to do is paint your wooden square. And you will need to let this dry. If you have a darker side and a lighter side, if your paint is light, I would go with the lighter side. This particular one has some markings there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paint this really quick. And you will need to let it dry before you go on to the next step. And you could do that with a hair dryer if you're in a hurry, or a fan, if you really want to go ahead and get this done. And I painted the sides on the one that I've already done, but I don't know if that's necessary, and it made a really big mess on my hands, so you can decide whether or not you want to paint the sides. If your paint doesn't cover it very well, you could do 2 coats, but again, let it dry between the coats. I only used 1 coat, and it's turned out just fine on the one that I did over here. And let's see, I don't want to get paint on my hands because I don't want to get paint on my ribbons. So I'm just going to kind of do this really fast. So you get the idea, and I'm going to put that aside. And once that is dry, the next step is going to be to take your green ribbon, and you're going to take about 7 inches is about right, and cut that off. Cut off 7 inches of your white ribbon. And we're going to go ahead and take our Mod Podge. And this is the one that I have that's already dry. I'm just going to put a little Mod Podge across the bottom. And you could also use glue, and I'm going to kind of center that on my Mod Podge. So it's like this. So I've got a little overhang on both ends. And then I'm going to bring that around, and I've going to put a little hot glue on my corners there. All right, that'll hold that down. So now we've got a nice flat ribbon. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bunny and I'm going to, I ended up putting mine this way. If you wanted to put yours the other way, you could, but I liked mine turned this way. So I'm going to put some Mod Podge on the back of my bunny. And you really need to get the edges because you don't want it to curl up. I'm going to go over here on my workspace a little bit. So you definitely want to get your edges. Then I put mine right across the top of the ribbon. And there is some flexibility there. Move it around. And then, so here we have it like this. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to Mod Podge on top of it. If you get any air bubbles, you can just kind of take your fingers and smooth it out a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to, let's see, and then I'm going to go ahead and stick his little tail on. And that will stick with the Mod Podge. And so after that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make there's going to be a little bow on the bunny. And I'm going to take my ribbon and I'm going to start at the end and 3 or 4 inches down from, I'm going to go ahead and make a bow. I'm going to hold the ends together in my hand and then I'm going to, just like tying your shoes, and I'm just going to wrap it around and make a bow really quick. Now, the reason I wanted to show you that is because you want to start on the end so you don't use up your ribbon because you're going to need your ribbon to hang it up. So play around with that a little bit. So I've got a ribbon there and you want to get it down to where it's about 2 inches wide. So there's that one. And I actually, because I was doing that pretty fast, and you can trim it down to what you need, but because we were going to be on camera, I went ahead and made a bow. And you would actually let your Mod Podge dry, but I don't really have time to do that, so I'm just going to do it now. I'm going to take that hot glue and I'm going to put that right on the center of my bunny's neck. So there we've got that hot glue. And the next thing I'm going to do is take the rest of that white ribbon and I'm going to thread it through the top. And this is another reason why you want your square to be dry, because if it wasn't dry, you would get paint all over it and that wouldn't be good. And it's actually helpful to have something to kind of help you thread that ribbon through, but you're going to thread it through the front like that. And again, mine's still a little wet, so I'm trying to be careful with my glue. You could also use string to do this if you would like, but just whatever you want to hang it from, but if you would like, you can use this white ribbon. Okay, so once I've got that white ribbon, and again, you're putting the ends through the front. Oops, my bunny little pom-pom fell off. That's okay, I can hot glue it. So I'm going to take that around there, and I'm going to tie a knot right on the ends. To tie it together. Okay, so there I've got my tie, and then I'm going to take that hot glue and glue that bunny tail on. And then that leftover green ribbon that I had, I'm going to tie a bow out of it. It's always easier to tie a bow when you have plenty of ribbon than if you're trying to do it with a skimpy piece, so that's why we tied our bow first. Okay. All right, so I'm going to tie my bow until it's about 2.5 inches wide. And again, I've got one that I've already played with to get it right. And so I ended up with a tail here. And I'll just need to come down and cut my tails to however want to get those tails about even, and I'm cutting them at an angle. And then, so far, so again, we've got that tied in the back. We've got our little ribbon hot glued there, and now we've got our little green ribbon tied. I'm going to tighten that up just a little, and I'm going to put that right up at the top with my hot glue. Now, you don't have to do yours exactly like I did mine. You can play around with it and do it however you would like to make it your own. But this is the way that I made mine, and I thank you so much for joining us today, and I especially want to thank our friends of the library for providing all of the funds for all of our craft materials and all the other wonderful programs that we do at the library. And thank you. I'll see you next time.